one of our favorite events of the year is the Rose Festival, which comes up at Park of Roses here in Columbus. And we actually had a caller earlier who asked us, what's the date of the Rose Festival that they have here? And best we can find out is June 4th. When they'd be at their peak. They have 11,000 rose bushes.
It is totally remarkable. And we thank the city of Columbus, of course, but we thank many volunteers that come in and help groom those, cut them down in the spring, thin them out, get them started off properly, refresh the mulch, fertilize, weed. Now, there is a small staff there, but believe me, the small staff is more a matter of management, getting people, volunteers that is, to the right places to expend their effort, and it is a bunch. I don't have any idea how many volunteer hours go into that. A lot of people, however, in what I will call the condo life anymore, or smaller apartments, etc., do not have a garden as they did in youth or as they did as a family in their earlier years. Mm-hmm. They will love to go out and get their fingers dirty, break a nail, etc., by working in the Columbus Park of Roses. And there are other volunteers that help with the beauty of our city also. But I have to commend those that do the superior work at the Park of Roses. 11,000 plants is a few more than I have, and it's just
not very many more. I've been there. Yeah,
it's just insurmountable, and the pruning, I suppose, is the most laborious thing, and most of the volunteers know to wear a pair of really good thick leather gloves so they can move ahead and not rip up the back of their hand, their fingers, stab their wrists, and so on. Cuffed gloves, a pair of sharp pruners, some knowledge of where to prune, and away they go. And I've never been there during the work days, but I just simply know that it takes a whole bunch of people. One of my, I'm going to call him a Rosarian from the past, gave some talks for me. I'm not sure he's still doing same, but he told me he has X hundred roses and can prune them all on April 1. And I teased him. I said, wait a minute. He said, well, several hundred of them are miniatures. They're little, smaller roses on their own roots, so they're not grafted. They're not quite as temperamental. And he said, I have a mower that I put on 10-inch wheels, so it gives me 5 inches of ground clearance. He said the blade is extremely sharp and kept so. He said, I just start it up, get it up to 2,000 RPM, and mow them all down.
Do you know how many people you just horrified listening to that?
Well, and he horrified some in my presence. He would bring in 5-gallon buckets with great big previous year's hybrid tea roses in them with stems thicker than my thumb, and just they had to have been wonderful. And I've heard people absolutely gasp when he starts pruning, because he's headed down in there to the crown of the plant, some 4 to 5, 6 inches out from the bud union. He's using loppers and or large hand pruners, getting down in there with a little saw, whatever it takes, taking out all but the best 3, possibly 5 stems, cuts the final cut to a bud on the outside of the stem so it opens out away from the center, theoretically, and in fact helping air move through the plant as well as sun, and keep it drier, a little less black spot, which helps with the disease management. But I've heard people in the first 3 rows, when he goes in there with a pair of loppers and they hear that crunch, it's just something, Mark. And he's, I hope he's still well and doing this, because he is quite knowledgeable. And even though he looks to be quite callous about what he's doing, it's the right thing, because I've seen him the year after he has pruned them.
Well, now that we've talked about Park of Roses, I'm sure we'll hear from our friend Nancy Walsh, who is their number one advocate.
Yes.
And we'll hear from her before the Rose Festival coming up first part of June.